All right, Self-Reliance, one of my absolute favorite pieces of literature. Obviously, it's at the heart of the transcendentalist movement. You know, the discussion that divinity pervades all humanity, all nature, everything in the natural world. Self-reliance is the key work that people look towards when identifying 19th century literature, specifically the American movement in transcendentalism and just the overall impact that Emerson had and Thoreau and other transcendentalist writers they had not only on American culture but the world. And so Self-Reliance, fantastic. Let's dive right into it with the protagonist. Protagonist of Self-Reliance is pretty simple. It's me, or you, or whoever the audience is that is reading Self-Reliance. It is made, Emerson made this work to go after the individual that was reading it. And that's the goal throughout. The goal is, his main point of transcendentalism is the importance of individuality. And so this is his, the work that he's known for, because this is the main ideas behind the transcendentalist movement and the idea of the uniqueness of the individual and how that's an important aspect in what life is. The antagonist of the novel, I think, is a little more complex. Obviously, on the surface, superficially, we look at, well, society is the one that's attacking our protagonist, which is me or you. But I think on a deeper level, we are our own antagonist. We are the ones that get distracted. We can blame all of the outside distractions that society gives us, but ultimately the one that is working against us the most is our individual selves, or your individual self. We are our biggest enemy in trying to achieve that individuality and that pureness that Emerson is highlighting throughout Self-Reliance. So obviously, with Emerson's main points, which are at the heart of Self-Reliance, we're going to look at them in a second, but this isn't a traditional story arc of a story with an exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution. This is something a little bit more unique. His four main points are buried throughout, the essay, Self-Reliance. So we're going to look at each one. I'm going to point out an example, something from the text that will work with each of his main points, and we'll work from there. Here's point one. All right, so we see that the main point for Emerson, his first point, is about bringing to light what's inside of us, because that's what's true and important. It's valued, and then ultimately, if we're able to bring out our individuality, that will only help to enhance our community. So the great example that I think he uses, page 3 from our packet on Self-Reliance, when he uses his example of the little boys. He says, halfway down the page on page 3, the nonchalance of boys who are sure of a dinner and would disdain as much as a lord to do or say ought to conciliate one is the healthy attitude of human nature. A boy is in the parlor what the pit is in the playhouse, independent, irresponsible, looking out from his corner on such people and facts as pass by. He tries and sentences them on their merits in the swift, summary way of boys, as good, bad, interesting, silly, eloquent, troublesome. He cumbers himself never about consequence, about interest. He gives an independent, genuine verdict. You must court him. He does not court you. Okay, and so that's the little boy. The little boy does not care about what society's telling him or how he should be. He just acts how he wants to act. And so he's not worried about, that last part of this example by Emerson. You must court him. Obviously meaning you must go to him. He's not going to come to you. He's going to be what he wants to be. And it's a great example of this main point for number one about bringing out our uniqueness, even though sometimes maybe our uniqueness may be rough or brash, or society views it as not the way to be. But that's what makes us unique, and that's the important aspect, and that's what Emerson's trying to highlight with this example about the little boys. True happiness. Okay, true happiness is something that we obviously always are seeking out. Um, and that's the heart of main point 2 from Emerson. It can only be achieved through our own recognition of our uniqueness, our talents, and our effort. And there's tons of examples throughout Self-Reliance. I think it's best summed up the very last 2 lines of Self-Reliance, last page, last 2 lines. Nothing can bring you peace but yourself. Nothing can bring you peace but the triumph of principles. And those principles are at the heart of of who we are as the individual. And so something that Emerson's imploring us to do, he does it throughout. I think it works best, and it's the best example with it being the last point in the essay. So that's point 2. All right, main point 3. So we dive into the idea of what's at the centerpiece of the transcendentalist movement, the idea that what's within us as the individual, the protagonist of self-reliance, transcends all other information that we can obtain from our senses. It goes over the science, it goes over the empirical evidence, everything that's a part of this natural world. And so the great analogy is on page 11, my favorite, probably my favorite piece from Self-Reliance. Page 11, halfway through, it's this rose analogy where Emerson says, "These roses under my window make no reference to former roses or to better ones. They are for what they are. They exist with God today. There is no time to them. There is simply the rose. It is perfect in every moment of its existence." And so this analogy is perfect and so beautiful because when you have this rose, the rose is only focused on being the rose. It's not focused on any other roses around them, what else is going on in society, what people are telling it to do, how to grow, how to be, how to act. It's not concerned. It transcends all because the rose is existing, as it says here, with God today. It's perfect in every moment of its existence, and it's a fantastic analogy by Emerson that really highlights this idea of the uniqueness of the individual transcending all of the natural world. Point number 4, the last of Emerson's main points, the take action. You know, it's great as the individual, as the protagonist, to think and to know what is right, but it's a totally another thing to take action, and that's exactly what Emerson's telling us, telling me, telling you, as the protagonist of the story, essentially. It's that we need to take action. And so he uses an illusion as he cites some historical figures to prove his point. On page 7, we're about the end of paragraph 2. It says, "Is it bad then to be misunderstood? Pythagoras was misunderstood, and Socrates, and Jesus, and Luther, and Copernicus, and Galileo, and Newton, and every pure and wise spirit that ever took flesh. To be great is to be misunderstood." What I really like in that passage there on page 7 is that and, a little polyscendent in there, and just the aspect of each of those beings just had such a huge impact, and they were misunderstood for their time because they were of action. They were people that were acting on the uniqueness of what God called them to do and who God called them to be. And so what they did is they took action, and that's something that Emerson is imploring us, me, you, as the audience, is to not only search out our uniqueness, our talents, our efforts, and then realize that those talents, they transcend everything in this natural world, but then on top of it, the last step, and probably the most difficult step, is to take action and be that person that God wants us to be. All right, so that's the 4 points. My final take is simply this: be you. I'll try to be me. Let's try and stay away as best we can from all of the distractions. There are tons. There are the distractions of nature. There are the distractions of humanity. All of these things that are pulling us away from what God wants us to be. And so just closing this out, if I can, Let's try and listen to Emerson a little bit today. It's a beautiful day. Love you guys. Bye.